Day in Colonial Haiti by Philippe Gerard. Narrated by Carrie Wilson. 7 p.m. The governor marvels at a hot air balloon. What a wonderful modern age we live in, marvels Guillaume de Bellecombe. The age of exploration has opened the world to Europeans, and his career had brought him to every corner of the French Empire, from Quebec in Canada to the Caribbean island of Martinique, then to the island of Reunion in the Indian Ocean, and the town of Pondicherry in India. At age 56, he has reached the pinnacle of his career. He serves as governor of France's richest colony, Haiti. Not only has Bellecombe seen the world, but the world has come to see him. Last year, William, the son of the King of England, attended a play in the Cape. Also last year, the governor of Cuba staged a bullfight in Bellecombe's honor outside the Cape. Just this morning, word came that a prince has arrived from Nigeria and was requesting an audience. Bellecombe normally resides in the administrative capital of Port-au-Prince, but today he is visiting the Galifay plantations in the plain of the Cape. It is a famous estate that was initially established using proceeds from the 1697 pirate raid on Cartagena. Since then, it has grown into a massive estate consisting of 3 sugar and 2 coffee plantations that net a combined revenue of 600,000 livres a year. Its workforce of 1,000 slaves was imported from Africa by companies based in France. The slaves eat salted cod from Canada, and the molasses they produce is exported to the United States. This is not a plantation. This is a multinational operation. Aqueducts, mills, and masonry buildings stretch as far as the eye can see. Truly, thinks Bellecombe, we live in a wonderful modern age. The owner of the Galifay estate lives in France, so the governor is greeted by the plantation agent, Nicholas. Many prominent planters in the plain of the Cape have come to witness one of the marvels of the age. It is a recent French invention that first flew at the king's court in Versailles just 6 months earlier, the hot air balloon. A few weeks ago, a similar balloon took off from a nearby plantation, the first test flight of a lighter-than-air vehicle in the Americas. It was a success, which is why a large and distinguished crowd has gathered for Galifay's first public demonstration. The editor of the newspaper of the Cape, Mozart, has come from the Cape to cover this historic event in person, and he proudly declares, "People in France generally believe that this is a colony of barbarians, but we may be more advanced than many prominent towns in France." Colonists nod approvingly. Today is proof that Haiti has come a long way from its pirate days. The hot air balloon is based on a simple law of physics. The hot air inside, being less dense than the cool air outside, exerts an upward thrust. In preparation for this flight, slaves are building a pyre underneath the balloon. This is a delicate process, as the balloon is made of paper. The slaves are told to hurry nonetheless. Night is falling fast, and the best times to launch balloons are dawn or dusk, when the air is still and relatively cool. While the final preparations are being made, Bellecombe gestures to the plantation's agent, Nicholas, to come closer. The governor wants to discuss a series of incidents that have been bothering him. On a nearby sugar plantation, the governor heard, a planter worked his slaves so hard that 20 of them ran away repeatedly. The planter found where they hid, shot 8 of them, burned another 5 alive, whipped 6 to death, and cut off the leg of the lone survivor. The agent shrugs. He has little patience for lazy slaves. Work on sugar plantations is arduous by nature, Nicholas explains. How could we produce enough sugar if we reduce the workload to, say, 16 hours a day? The only way to produce is to use up men and animals. The governor pinches his lips. What about, he continues, the case of another slave owner from the Cape who abused 3 women of color? The man pulled out the teeth and cut the tongue of a female slave, burned off the genitals of a slave girl, and apparently subjected the 3rd woman, who was his own daughter, to his incestuous impulses. There is no economic rationale for such treatment. This is pure sadism. And yet, when the matter was referred to the judge of the Cape, the judge refused to act. As he should, Nicholas responds sternly. The black code that governs slavery in the colony bans rape and torture, but it also specifies that slaves cannot bear witness against their master. A judge cannot act based on a mere denunciation by a slave. If victims cannot testify against perpetrators, presses the governor, how can the code ever be enforced? He describes another case that came to his attention. A slave was drawn and quartered by the manager of the Maziere plantation, who then displayed what remained of his body by the main road. The case was clear-cut, and yet, complains the governor, when I sent judicial officials, they did not find, or chose not to find, any evidence. Nicholas waves away the story. Such sadists, if they do exist, are the exception, not the norm. The governor's voice drops to a whisper. The next case he describes involves L'archevêque, a well-known member of the Cape's Court of Appeals. The judge sired 2 children with a pretty wench of his. His jealous wife put her rival in a cell, cut her hair and ears, and had her branded on each cheek. After the woman was disfigured, the husband lost interest and sold her off, which was the wife's goal all along. Slaves are immolated to satisfy the shameful passions of their masters, the governor cries out. And yet tribunals look the other way because court officials like L'archevêque are themselves guilty. Not only are such extrajudicial punishments inhumane, they are an insult to the king's authority. Only colonial courts have the right to torture slaves, draw and quarter them, or burn them alive. The agent chuckles. Planters in this colony care more about their property rights as slave owners than about the king's authority. Bellecombe is stung by the snarky comment, but he can't say that he is surprised. When the king appointed him as governor, His Majesty warned that royal laws were often ignored in the colony, and that the governor would need to use persuasion and interest to convince planters to obey the law. The governor swallows his pride and gives it a go. What about your own self-preservation? 9 out of 10 people in this colony are slaves. If they are treated horribly and have no legal avenue for redress, their only option is to revolt. To drive home his point, the governor mentions yet another incident that took place on a coffee plantation. The planter, named Lejeune, tortured and burned several slaves because he was convinced that they were plotting to poison him. The surviving slaves, thinking that they would be next, killed their master before he could kill them. Those murderers were punished appropriately by authorities, but now rumor has it that another member of the same family, who is equally paranoid about poison, is also threatening to torture and burn slaves on his plantation. Surely such atrocities will incite slaves to murder their masters. The agent is looking for a way to get out of this conversation. Luckily for him, just as the governor is about to mention another case of abuse, a sudden commotion interrupts him. The fire is lit under the balloon, which inflates, rises, and wriggles as if trying to escape from its restraints. The ropes anchoring the balloon are cut, and slowly, as if by magic, the balloon rises in a lazy spiral that gives everyone a chance to admire the 4 allegorical paintings that adorn its sides, depicting chemistry, physics, air, and fire. And to think that in France, some brave men have actually gone up in this contraption! The governor marvels at the thought. Nearby, a woman is also gazing at the ascending orb in the daze, her cheeks flushed. Bellecombe can't help himself. Women love balloons, so much that one of them will probably want to make love in the air. This will only confirm Frenchmen's reputation for their lack of levity, the journalist Mozart quips back. The joke has landed. The governor chuckles, and the planters laugh along obligingly. The balloon, rising almost vertically in the calm evening air, has reached an altitude of 1,800 feet. All this because someone lit a simple bonfire. It is now barely visible in the darkening sky, except for the flickering light of a candle suspended under the balloon. Governor Bellecombe looks at the distant fire in awe. What a wonderful modern age we live in!
This is a note from the historian Philippe Girard. This balloon flight was one of 3 that took place on the Galifet plantation that day. The details about the flight are based on accounts in the Cape's newspaper, as well as the testimony of the colonial historian and lawyer Moreau de Saint-Méry. There is also plenty of evidence, sadly, about the many cases of abuse mentioned in this chapter. Later in 1784, the King of France issued new laws banning atrocities against slaves, but sadly to no avail. One of the sadistic planners mentioned in this chapter, Nicolas le Jeune, was acquitted in 1788 despite confessing to the torture by fire and eventual murder of 2 female slaves. As predicted by the governor, Guillaume de Bellecombe, the slaves eventually fought back. The agent of the Galifet plantation, mentioned in this chapter, Nicolas Audeluc, was one of the first whites killed during the Great August 1791 slave revolt. This book is available on Amazon as an audiobook and an ebook, and a good old-fashioned paperback if you want to dive into the footnotes and the sources for this chapter.